All right, here we go.
All right, everyone. So I'm Peter Parker. I'm a senior email developer. Today, I'm going to be sort of going over a couple of definitions that hopefully we can sort of all use the same sort of. We can all be on the same page when it comes to talking about these terminologies, and that would be templates and versions. We're also going to be sort of discussing today what a touch is, and then finally we have sort of a new term that we're going to be starting to use called a series. So this shouldn't be, we shouldn't take the whole hour. It should be I think around 30 minutes, but this is more of an open conversation. So if anybody has any questions or you know, when we're going through the definitions, please feel free to stop me and we can sort of discuss if there's any confusion. So a template. A template is a reusable structure which contains brand design elements. A pre-header, navigation, main content area, footer are common elements found in a template. A template should only see minor development consisting of filling in text and adding imagery. Changing the structure of the template will result in a non-templated build. So this is what a template should be. So we're using an Under Armour template. So as you can see, on the left-hand side, the first image, we have a shell, and the shell has that branded design elements. So it's a client-specific template. And as you can see in the gray boxes, this would be our structured template. So you have a hero image, then you have a secondary story image, and then you have a left and right columned section. So this is how we look at templating. So if the structure changes in any which way during the build, let's say that they wanted to add 3 columns at the bottom, this would no longer be a templated build. It would be a non-templated build, and then after that development, it could fall into that template area. So just to be clear, a template is primarily changing out content and imagery. So when you start really changing up the structure, that's when we're going to stop calling it a template and saying it's either a one-off email or a non-templated build. So we have versions. So versions are multiple emails that share one template structure. Email versions are typically driven off of list data and are personalized to the subscriber. So a version, and I will show you this, and if it gets really crazy, we will stop. I love it. So we have a Marriott email that we versioned out. As you can tell, the structure doesn't change. So the only thing that's changing is content inside of the structure. So I will go. A real screenshot of the actual email. Real live screenshot.
I love the magical pictures going on right
now. Yes, yep. So this is such a great example of how you can tell that the email structure is staying in place. And what we're doing is we're just driving, we're using imagery to display the dynamic element. So when you're looking at your PSDs that are coming in from your clients and stuff like that, and if you can sort of go through those PSDs and if you start seeing the structure change, then we shouldn't refer to that email as a versioned email anymore. What we should be referring to it as a series. So a series are multiple emails that do not share one template structure. A series is similar to a version because it derives content off a segmented data list. So what we're trying to create in our department in email development is that when you guys use terminologies like versions, we're thinking dynamically driven. We're going to have one template. We're going to use a lot of AMScript variable information to load that content in. And then when you start referring to series, then we can be like, oh my, this could be a 5 emails with inside of the series, all different structures. So we're going to consider it that we're going to sort of put a longer timetable into it, and we could add more developers, you know, to help support that new campaign. So here's an example of what we would consider a series now. As you can see, you know, you have different areas populating, you have different sized emails, and there's not that sort of that flow that structure that you saw in the version example. So this will help us sort of, you know with timetables, turnaround times, you know, complexity of builds, you know, and how we're going to go about implementing a series inside of ExactTarget as well. So you know, you might ask, well, I might have an email that has one structure that has 4 versions inside of it, and then we might have two other segmented emails that have 2 different structures. So what we would consider that is a 3-series email with one of them having 3 versions associated with it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to become more granular with inside of how we are interpreting the email structure. So it'll help, like I said, it will help us, you know, with development time and putting the right, you know, people on your types of builds. So we're going to go into the next definition, which is a touch, and I know that some people are sort of confused sometimes of using the terminology of what a touch campaign is. So a touch campaign is sent to different emails in an ordered sequence. Subscribers will receive the first email, and over a set amount of time will get the second, third, fourth touch email. The numbers of the emails can vary per campaign. Typically set it up in ExactTarget as individual emails within a content folder. A touch can be developed from a template and non-templated structure. So we use the welcome series for Under Armour to use as our examples, and as you can tell, we have the touch 1, which is you know, has a different structure than touch 2 to touch 3 that has different versions associated within that touch, and then a touch 4. So also I had a screen grab of how the ExactTarget setup is, and you can sort of see it. Hopefully you can see that everything is in one content area, but then has the individual emails or individual touches within inside that setup. So you know, when we're talking about touches, it's they're almost individual. They're kind of like individual ad hocs that are associated with one type of campaign. So yeah, so you could use. So it's similar to having using a series, but then having a versioned out. You know, so it's really open. We can, you know, have templated and non-templated things associated with that type of campaign. So does anybody have any questions on touches?
So if touch 3 has, you know, several versions, if they don't look alike, are they called series?
So it would be all associated with how we would set it up. So even though that within this example you have you have the CTI on the left-hand side on a couple of them, and then you have the CTI on the right-hand side. The way that we could slice this campaign up, we could just do, you know, 3 horizontal slices, and we could put this as a versioned type of email. So it really just depends on sort of how the structure of the email is set up, you know, and that's sort of how we will, you know, determine. I'll go back to, you know, that, sort of how that goes. So as you can tell within this, like the email is not really growing or shrinking. It's staying consistent. Where, you know, we could have in the versions, you know, that we might have. So these might be more of a series because they're growing and shrinking. But these might, I think it just is how I sort of resize these. I think these would be the same size, so we could version these two out by swapping in and out the imagery. So what's also sort of great by us sort of being on the same page as well is these very complex builds. I know that, you know, PNC sometimes has these, you know, 20-plus version emails that come down the line, and if they start using terminologies with versions and the content's really only switching out, we can set up, you know, kickoff meetings and really, you know, dive into the content and, you know, create that one email structure and really make it dynamic, you know, how we're generating the content into that one sort of structure and not creating 32 individual emails.
You did a lot of Royal.
Yeah, so we did a lot of that for Royal. So we've done some really complex stuff. You know, we haven't really seen a lot. I think that Marriott build that Camille did, you know, that was just really, really cool stuff that, you know, we can always share with the clients of what type of cool things that we're doing, and will sort of help us and, you know, gain more knowledge of, you know, dealing with, you know, list-driven, you know, content, you know, specific data to an individual subscriber. So if we can start using this terminology for one thing, I think we can set everybody up for success, especially with setting expectations for the client. Everybody will be on the same page on sort of how long an email will get built, and then hopefully with this type of terminology, our SOWs can stay consistent with how we are expecting, you know, content coming over from the client as well. So this was sort of a way for us to have the same, you know, talking the same language, and that's sort of the reason why I put this presentation together for you guys. So does anybody really have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I always get asked when I try to like move towards like the version E or something, I always get asked, well, what's the time savings on that? And I know it like depends on the content, but like between like the versions and the series, if they wanted, you know, like just a rough like this would save you X amount of time. Do you have anything like that?
I think that versioning will save you time in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it's more of a complex way of thinking about bringing in that data. Lookup table that has that content in the lookup table, we might really have to sort of map things out and really sort of get down to, you know, what is actually happening, which can take some time, but in the long run of making changes, of revisiting things, like you're only really looking at sort of a content area instead of having to update inside of an actual entire email structure. So you know, I'd say you know, initially it's a lot of work, but over the duration of time of when that campaign is going out, you know, it would be minor changes. And as developers, we wouldn't be working inside of the whole structure, and with the possibilities of us sort of adding things or subtracting things, we'd be working in more of just that content area that would be getting pulled in.
And if you are talking about, let's say you have 4 emails and they're all different, and you have them built as a series, and they're all 4 structures, and each one took an hour, So let's say you built one in 1 hour, and then you added 3 versions to it, each would probably take about half the time or even less than the next one. So
Yeah, that's always what I did ask.
take it from 4 hours to 2 hours easily without, cutting your time. You have the structure built already, you just need to add the content into it.
Yeah, and this also too, when we're talking about the mobile view, or what the mobile user is going to receive as well. If there's, we'd still lump that type of campaign into a series as well. If there is if there's a lot of difference between the desktop view and the mobile view, I know that sometimes within TIA that we've done, they even populate different content for the mobile view. So we would probably consider those a series email because of the fact that we're changing the look, for that mobile view. And ADV as well. Sometimes it's they flip-flop content all over the place, some stuff that, and it becomes the complexity and what we just don't want to have. Like I said, there's a difference between a desktop view to a mobile view just changing inside of a width size, and everything sort of stacks on top of each other, and the text stays the same, and the color arrangements and all the structures sort of stay the same, just sort of stacks into a column structure to, when you go to the mobile view, you're showing and hiding a lot of stuff. So that's another thing to sort of consider when viewing the desktop view to the mobile view as well.
So if you have, one ad hoc campaign with multiple emails in it that are non-templated, in terms of something like the change form, how would you refer to, because a lot of times we refer to it as version 1 or version 2 when they're not versions, as you're saying? Yeah,
so how you set up your variable information, some people use lead ID, some people use, we used email version as a header to just sort of to go by that. It really is sort of up to you on how you want to set up that header, and then how the header name and how you want that information to be set up inside of the data. Like I said, we've set it up, and I think it's become sort of a default header, the email version. But it's all up to you and sort of how you want to set that up, because all we really need is sort of the header name and then different things within inside of the field. So to target on that.
So Peter, when you have the template, you have that one large image for the hero or Under Armour. But then looking at like their welcome, looking at here, the CTAs are in different places.
Yep.
I know that some clients want them sliced differently to where the CTA is. Does that still would be a template though? Even in the HTML, you'd have to change it?
Yes, it's just one slice.
Yeah, so it would be one slice.
One slice.
Mm-hmm. So we've sort of changed our philosophy within inside of email dev on how we're tackling slicing. I know that with Nespresso we're still slicing, being heavily into the slicing areas. The reason why we've come up with this more of one slice for a lot of the other clients is because of when we go into the mobile responsive side of things with fluid responsive design and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to shrink a solid image down than it is to shrink an image that has a bunch of slices in between, because sometimes the math just doesn't work, and certain devices might have certain screen sizes and pixel densities, and we have found to be safe across the board to really eliminate the multiple slices within the hero image or in a large image, and create what we call like a single sliced image email. So
I think we should be able to do that pretty soon for Nespresso, but until then, would it still be a
Yeah, so we don't really have a template with Nespresso. What we do have is we typically have the shell of the email, so the navigation and the footer kind of solved, and then because of the fact that the creative changes all the time, Nespresso is really not a templated focused client. They're very much I would say that they're more on the print side of how they design their emails. Very dramatic and not really worrying about, keeping within sort of the same structure through different campaigns. I think some of the automated campaigns that I've seen through Nespresso could be in a templated structure that we're doing, very dynamic into those types of areas. But typically it's one big image that we are slicing up. Rarely we have any web text inside of their emails.
So then, when you're building the CWS and we have that reference campaign section, would we, once we do have a template, say like for Under Armour, you would reference the template and not a previous campaign?
Yeah. Yep. What it does when we reference templates is that we can keep our code consistently clean, and if we ever find any issues, like, hey, this has been breaking here, like we need to make a fix, we make the fix to the template, and what's great about that is that fix goes and moves on with us building. It's not, we don't have to worry about it coming back, and that's sort of the horror that we're faced is when we make this change and everybody thinks we're good and well, and then 6 months down the line we're like, hey, go back and find that old campaign that we used in the spring to use for the fall, and that error comes back into the fold. It's really easier for us to really work with clean templates as well. So
I think one good thing here too is that because if you have like standard, let's say you have 7 templates that your client's going to use, if you can just set up your CWS, and this is what we've done. It doesn't say, for example, new season hero image, flex pressure or whatever. It says first image, second image, left image, right image, or whatever. So every single time it's going to populate for you very easily, very quickly what you're going to stick in there for your URL. So you don't have a different looking CWS every time you send it over to the devs, and the devs are used to seeing it exactly that same way every time. So if you, set that up ahead of time too, that's nice, because of the fact that, even if they are going to slice out the CTAs separately, you can just put in first image CTA, and have that set up so that whatever template you've got, you're not typing that in or even looking for an old CWS to use as a template CWS, and then maybe you missed one here or there, and you've got old URLs in there when it comes to the dev, and then you got to put it in the change form later. It makes it easy to go quickly start from scratch every time versus have to start with an old one that you may even have mistakes in.
So is email dev when you start doing templates for everyone? I know, like we said, this person we can't, but you already have one basically for you?
we try to. The real sort of the more successful clients that we have with working inside of templates are usually the ones that we can work with the creative teams. While they develop, the emails. I think the Marriott with, Blaze was a really good, worked really well together because, if he starts adding certain elements into a different or that same campaign that doesn't line up with inside of what we would consider a single template with versioning, we could go back and be like, hey, can you remove this because we can just populate this stuff in and out, but because you added this new thing to this one certain email, we now can't dynamically do that, and he's like, sure, it's out, type of thing. So have opportunities to make things templated, we will totally do it. But it really, having that you know, when we can work together with the creative team or creative department, you know, during the process, it totally helps.
So who are we working with on your guys' side?
For,
Would be with you, like, for, say, Nespresso?
so if you guys wanted to create templated stuff, yeah, I think that, yeah, you would work with me. I could work with sort of the creative side for Nespresso, and we can really, you know, lock things in or choose, like maybe, you know, 3-4 emails that you send out a month, maybe we make those into a templated structure, and then, you know, the rest of them become these one-off ad hoc, you know, style of builds, because it helps with turnaround time. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, or we don't really, you know, we try to mitigate development time by creating the shell and reusing the shell, but if we can, you know, have the shell and then we have, you know, certain elements that are always showing up when we really just do image swaps, that we can turn around an email very, very fast, because we really are just going in and changing, you know, those images, especially for Nespresso. We'd just be changing out imagery for you guys. So.
Peter, I was thinking about too that since you mentioned, which is a side note, I guess, but you were talking about responsive design and how people may or may not still want those CTAs sliced out. That I guess if you're starting to work with a client that's going to go to responsive, maybe you let them know ahead of time before they start designing how they want all the responsive to look. Say, hey, you probably don't want to be slicing out your CTA anymore, just so they don't do it, and they send it over and you say, well, it's not going to work, it's going to take forever to build these when they come in, just head it off before.
Yeah, and yeah, just having transparency with their expectations of how they want it to look for the mobile view. Yeah, if they're used to having those images sliced out and having the CTA button when the images aren't loaded to be that color with the text inside of it, you know, giving them a heads up, like when we go into sort of the responsive realm, we're going to eliminate the slicings, because we can expect that more devices will be able to render that appropriately, and we won't have any sort of rendering issues. So those are the types of conversations that you want to sort of have before, you know, it goes into development and they're not, you know, not expecting what they normally expect. You know, the desktop to mobile is very much a new thing. You know, when I first came to Merkle 2.5 years ago, we were just scratching the surface of just talking about it, and now we're full blown into you know, mobile responsive emails in our production, which is super crazy. So this is a learning experience for us as well. So anything that we find are sort of quick fixes that we think that you need to start talking to your clients about, we'll start bringing it up, you know, for you guys, so that you don't get sort of, we don't do things without you guys really knowing what's happening. So yeah, I'll have these. Nicole is recording this, so that if anybody wants to sort of revisit this, you can go to it. On our website, we will have these slides available for you guys. So if you ever need to go back and review the deck, we'll have it on a website that I can send out the URL to. So thank you very much, everyone. Does anybody on the phone have any questions? I'm sorry. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.